What's history got to do with it? And the issue today is the Budapest Memorandum. Now, my question is, why isn't anyone talking about this 30-year document?
Political revolution of the millennials.
Welcome to Political Playlist
All right, are we ready, guys?
Happy Hour.
Happy hour.
You fucked that up so bad.
God.
Welcome to Political Playlist Happy Hour. I'm Michael Kristoff.
And I'm Anthony Barquette.
And Anna is still on Percocets, so she will not be joining us. She's in recovery. We are, of course, wishing her a speedy recovery. But we're here, drinks in hand. Anthony brought up a thing that I had never heard about, the Budapest Memorandum. Anthony, what the hell is the Budapest Memorandum? I just assumed it was a Wes Anderson film. It appears that it's something way more serious than that. Talk to me about this. What's the deal with this?
Way more serious. So
Okay.
what's history got to do with it? Because often in politics, a lot of our politicians forget about history. Now, the issue is the Budapest Memorandum, as you've already mentioned. But the question that I'm asking today is, why isn't anyone talking about this signed document from over 30 years ago?
Because I haven't heard anything about this.
I really hadn't either until I just did some digging. The Budapest Memorandum was signed in 1994.
So this would have been the Clinton administration?
Yes. So the memorandum is an agreement between the US, Russia, and Britain, which committed to the independence and sovereignty of existing borders of Ukraine
Wow.
and to refrain from the threat or use of force against the country.
Wow. Okay. So hold on. Okay. Got a couple of questions. The first is that this is utterly fascinating.
Yeah.
The second is that this seems like Putin is completely taking a giant shit on this memorandum that was signed, which was really like a promise. It wasn't like a legal binding thing, but it was, a commitment. Ukraine, in exchange for this agreement, gave up their nuclear weapons.
Yeah, this is a fun fact here.
Okay. Lay it on me.
Ukraine had the third largest nuclear arsenal. They had over 1,900 nuclear warheads.
Okay.
I want to just put that in perspective. That is 6 times more than the number of warheads that China currently has.
Wow. So Ukraine basically agreed to give up their stockpile. And also to give some context, right? So the Soviet Union falls in like late 1991, and Europe and the US and everyone's sort of not really sure what this means. Is war going to break out? Is there going to be civil unrest? So the idea is that, okay, Ukraine has come into possession of all these nuclear weapons, some of which they had. And in the interest of sort of trying to enshrine Eastern European stability, they make this offer. And so Ukraine says, okay, we'll give up our nuclear weapons if you agree to our borders and our sovereignty and to not invade. That's kind of the gist of it.
I think this was probably a big win for the world in creating safety, but Ukraine wouldn't do it without certain parameters, as they shouldn't. Number one was they got paid for the uranium in the nuclear warheads. Number two, Ukraine really couldn't afford these costs of bringing these nuclear weapons and sort of discontinuing them, so to speak. So the US agreed to those costs. Number three, Ukraine was guaranteed and assured its security once it got rid of the nuclear arms.
So this is what's so interesting, right? Is that part of this conflict is stemming from the fact that Russia has said the party line is that they didn't want Ukraine to ever become part of NATO. So I guess my question to you is, where do you think this whole thing sort of went wrong? At what point do you think Putin sort of said, the hell with it, I'm going to go in here and forget the memorandum?
One of the tough things here is, when the president before this current president in Ukraine was very pro-Russia, right? And what worries me is you see a new person come into politics. They become the opposite of what might have been historically the way. And in this instance, it hasn't protected him. Russian standpoint of Putin, I have no idea what he is thinking right now. And
Right.
I don't think he ever thought that it would get to this stage. One, every Ukrainian person is becoming the biggest, baddest, coolest mother out there.
It's
I mean,
unbelievable.
it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's so rewarding to watch. And two, Russia's lost way more people in their military, which it sounds like he was not honest with what they were doing.
We don't know what the official count is, but it's estimated somewhere in the 2,000 to 4,000 region, possibly upwards. And,
Yeah.
again, to put it into context, the United States lost approximately 2,500 in the 19 years of war in Afghanistan. So the idea that that many casualties has just happened in a week of invading, and this is the Russian army we're talking about, and I think the statistic is somewhere in the range of 10% of Russia's full military capability.
But going back to this agreement, which was 30 years ago, what I've read about is it provided assurances, but not guarantees, which I think is so sad to hear.
I think the boldness of Putin's moves in Ukraine have frankly unified the world around him. I don't think he thought that the US global leadership was going to be as effective as it has proven to be. And I don't think he thought that the NATO alliance was going to be as enduring as it has proven to be. That, to me, has personally surprised me, given that I think over the last 4 to 6 years, particularly under the previous president, the NATO alliance just sort of went to shit. But you see how young people in our country take to the streets with regard to social issues. And I guess I wonder, do you think that if we were defending democracy, that we would be as, call it, resilient or brave as the people of Ukraine right now?
Tough to say. I mean, it's actually made me think of my grandfathers who both served and who were immigrants,
Yeah.
But both served for the U.S. and their feeling of serving. And it wasn't even a question. They had to, but it was also absolutely.
Do you think that we've lost a little bit of that sense of duty in this
I
country?
think so, because a lot of the younger generation has never lived through war. Hopefully this is a lesson to everyone, is we do not want to be in wars.
Let me ask you one last question before we go here with regard to the Budapest Memorandum. Do you see any kind of a Budapest Memorandum 2.0 coming out of this war in Ukraine?
I hope so, but maybe it will involve, if we're going to buy your oil again, that money is going to pay to rebuild Ukraine back again. You have a devastated country. It's going to take, we're going to have some form of like a Marshall Plan back in Ukraine.
Yeah, that because you
somber note. But
somber note, man. I know. Well, obviously, I think the most important thing is that all of these, the millions of people that are fleeing Ukraine are being accepted in neighboring NATO countries, and I think that's really amazing to see, is that so many of these neighboring countries are really just opening their doors in a way that is a really profoundly positive example of humanity.